can't remember how to do it. Oh no. Hello, howdy, my dudes. Welcome to the Fright Night podcast, which is a complete mess and we don't have an intro. I'm Phoebe.
I'm Georgia.
That's Greg. And today we're talking about a movie we saw yesterday, Midsommar by Ari Aster. And
It was a mess.
It's something. I don't quite know what else to say about it. This is his follow-up film to his directorial feature debut last year, Hereditary, which was personally my favourite film last year, so I was very excited to see this. And
what a mess.
I don't quite know what to say about it. It's a film. And stuff happens, and I had to sleep on this, and I still don't know what the hell was going on.
Well, is it a horror, or does it fit more into thriller? Because that's what I've been trying to figure out.
Well, it's classified as a folk horror film, and
folk horror?
Yeah, that's what it's classified as on Wikipedia, the most trusted source of all time.
We love those subgenres.
Oh yeah, definitely. Which, on Wikipedia, folklore is classified as the expressive body of culture shared by a particular group of people, because I had to look that up. So Hereditary, on the other hand, fun fact, because I've got the IMDb trivia page open, because I'm very prepared, and now I suddenly can't find the note. Apparently, there it is. According to Ari Aster, this was supposed to be his first horror movie since Hereditary was intended just to be a family drama.
A family drama? I think it was much more than that.
I love my family dramas where my mum gets possessed and chops her own head off.
I mean, that's just a normal weekday.
Oh yeah. Oh, by the way, spoilers. probably should have said that. Spoiler alert for...
Will contain spoilers.
For Midsommar and probably Hereditary as well, because there's quite a few parallels, I think, between this and Hereditary.
Yeah.
Ari Aster definitely has a theme going on with his movie. Funnily enough, in the spoilers section of the trivia on IMDb, there is quite literally this bit that says, "Director's trademark. Both of Ari Aster's films so far have included gruesome shots of bashed-in faces."
And naked people.
And naked people in cults.
A lot of naked people.
And making weird noises. We've got... he's got a running theme here. People getting set on fire seems to be a theme as well.
Yeah.
And it's weird. So I think we haven't planned this at all. We didn't intend to even record this, but it was such a weird...
It wasn't meant to have a plan.
No, but it was
just our reaction to a film we saw.
That was a mess. So we're just gonna talk about it. I've got the Wikipedia summary open so that we can just go through the movie bit by bit, and I'll just read out what happens, and then if you want to interrupt or anything, or I'll stop if there's something specific to talk about, because there's a lot to talk about with this movie. It's just weird. Highly recommend you watch this before you listen. It's definitely the kind of movie that will be spoiled really badly if you listen to somebody talk about it.
It'll probably make no sense.
Yeah, and it's definitely something you should experience before you watch it, just so you can be as in the dark as we were and so thoroughly confused. So this film stars Florence Pugh, I believe is how you pronounce her last name. I could be completely wrong, very sorry. Who plays Danny, the main character. We also have Jack Rayner in it, who is playing Christian Hughes. William Jackson Harper playing Josh, Wilhelm Blomgren as Pele, and Will Poulter as Mark. These are the main characters, more or less, who are a group of American friends. Their friend Pele is from Sweden, and he has invited them to Sweden to experience this, what's the word? It's like not a party.
Midsummer festival?
Yeah, it's like a festival where it's tradition, and every 90 years there's kind of this very important one. I can't exactly remember what it was that made it so important, but he invites his friends and shit hits the fan. That's the best way I can describe it. So
you could say, like, nothing is as it seems.
Yeah, but I mean, this is Ari Aster, so I went in.
Everything's
just weird. It's Ari Aster. I'm seriously concerned about what goes through this man's head. He needs a therapist. once again, this was distributed by A24 because probably everyone else just looked at it and went, no thanks. And it's just bizarre. So yeah,
I think to say though, the cinematography was like amazing.
It had fantastic.
It was
cinematography.
beautiful.
It was. I think he has a very distinct style as well, because it was one of those things where I could look at it if it was just a still and not know who it's from, and I could probably be able to tell it was his. Like if I was able to look at a shot, like there's one scene, well, there's a shot in particular where it goes from her going into a bathroom at Pele's house, and then it transitions into the airplane bathroom.
Yeah, that was really nice.
Yeah, which it reminded me a little bit of the shot in Hereditary where Annie's walking through the hallway to the lady's house that I can't think of, and it kind of goes upside down, the shot.
Yeah, they did that again in the opening of the film, if you remember. Like, they're driving along the road.
Yeah, when they were driving.
And the camera just flips, and it's just, like, it's really unnerving to watch. Like, that's done really well.
Yeah, this definitely, funnily enough, when I was just looking up the trivia, one of the things that came up was a review by The Guardian, who had said something, you've just made me think of it because of the exact words you used. They gave this film a 2 out of 5 stars, which I think I think that's a bit harsh, but Hereditary was very controversial. They said it was a dread-free horror, which I 100% disagree with. I thought it was very suspenseful and tense.
Oh,
personally.
definitely.
I was very, I mean, you looked over at me at the end of the opening bit, and I just had my hands on my face because I was like, oh my god, I need to
the opening scene is just brilliant.
In fact, should we get into that, just like the plot and start? Okay, nice segue. Okay, so it opens with Danny, who is played by Florence Pugh, I believe, who, by the way, is a British actress, and I didn't realise, so I think I think she did a good job at an accent. Then again, I didn't realise Hugh Laurie was British until my mum told me, so I'm not the best judge. So she has a bipolar sister who she's talking to on, she says email, it looked like a chat room, but whatever. So her sister's messaging her with kind of these cryptic, worrying messages, and she sent her a message, something along the lines of like,
it was like, it's gone dark, or like, it's dark, mum and dad are coming with me too, goodbye, and that was just it.
And she's worried, so she calls up her boyfriend Christian, who's played by Jack Rayner, and is basically saying that she's concerned about her sister, and he's telling her that her sister's done it before, she's probably just doing it for attention, and that she shouldn't worry about it. But Danny's still very worried, obviously, as you would be. And Christian, there seems to be problems in their relationship. Christian is talking with his friends, and I think it's Mark that says that he's been wanting out of the relationship for a year now. So
and
they obviously,
Danny thinks he also wants to break up with her, so there's something going on.
He thinks she's a bit clingy, and so Danny calls Christian again, and they're kind of all just like, oh, for God's sake, she's calling again, she's so clingy, and she is a mess on the other end of the phone, and we get this one hell of a shot, and it's is it the exhaust pipe that she's blocked?
Yeah, she's like hooked up the exhaust pipes.
She's
to
plugged
like
it.
Each of the family's rooms, and then you get just this really unnerving shot of the sister kind of slumped over, like next to the computer, and she's kind of duct taped this hose she's put in the exhaust like into her mouth.
Yeah.
But it's just like, it's really unsettling. It's really just shocking.
It's really messed up. She's put one of the pipes into her parents' room, who we saw them earlier lying in bed while Danny was calling them asking if her sister was okay, and turns out they're dead from I guess carbon monoxide poisoning.
Yeah.
And she's got this hose duct taped to her mouth. It's very shocking, very well done, suspenseful.
I guess it's just it's so unexpected because it's not kind of one of the usual ways people
I was expecting like an overdose or so. I was expecting her to have died, but the family on top of it, and in that way,
it's I noticed it, but it was very good at like subverting kind of your expectation, because when it first kind of cuts to this family's house, you see is it firemen outside?
Yeah.
And, you know, firemen, they're surrounded by smoke, so you think, oh, you know, she's
set the
burnt
house
this
on
house
fire.
down. And it's something just, you know, so much worse. It's just like, yeah, it's incredibly well done, but yeah, very shocking.
If you've seen Hereditary, it's pretty well known. Charlie was all over the advertising material, and they kind of pulled a Drew Barrymore in Scream and killed her off about 30 minutes in, is it? In a rather shocking way. It reminded me of that a little bit, actually, in the fact that it's kind of like, it's very
they kind of
shocking.
set up this family.
Yeah, and they just do it without any, like, no warning, nothing. It's just very, I mean, I guess there's a warning in a way, but it's just very shocking. And it then switches to a shot of Danny crying on the sofa.
That was really well acted as well.
Yeah.
Because you do get some kind of, you know, grieving scenes, and they're just like, you know, there's nothing really to them, but this was really just like, you felt it. She's
great acting from Florence Pugh. I again, I could be pronouncing this very wrong. She acted fantastically in this, very good performance. Again, I'm going to make a lot of comparisons to Hereditary in this, because they have a lot of similarities. When Charlie dies, there's a scene where Annie is on the floor crying, saying that she wants to die. Reminded me a lot like that. It's Ari Aster has a very specific way of portraying grief, and it's a way that you don't see a lot. A lot of movies will kind of just do that thing where people cry and they kind of break down, but it really shows how much it affects them. I thought it was very well done. And
and it's also not like, you know, generally in films it's just like, oh, they're sad, skip to a few months and they're all better kind of thing. Like, the grief continues throughout the film, and I think that's one of the big
with her,
it's one of the big themes of the film, is kind of grief and loss.
Yeah, it's very well done. He knows how to put grief into his movies. It's very well done. And the shot zooms in on the window, and we get the title scene. And I just turned to you in the cinema and went, "That's one hell of an opening." Because, good lord, it was fantastic. Very similar, like, thematically, I think, to Hereditary, and which is weird because then it kind of does a complete 180, and it's very different. But
I guess Hereditary as well was quite, in terms of lighting, was quite low light, you know, very dark,
more
dark
traditional
themes,
for a horror
kind
movie.
of thing. Yeah, whereas in this one it kind of subverts that, and you've got, you know, really light, airy spaces, really bright, vibrant colours that weren't there in Hereditary.
This is a very bright, colourful movie, which I actually very much like, because one of the things when you're watching a horror film, at least I find, is that when you get the scenes in the daytime, you kind of don't have to worry, because you're like, okay, everything's fine, it's the day. It's when it turns to night, and then you're like, oh, and now everything's going to happen. Whereas in this, because everything happens in the day,
everything happens in the day.
It's like, when's something going to happen? And I mean, things just come out of nowhere. We'll get to that in a minute. But Pele, who is one of Christian's friends, basically invites them all along to this Midsommar festival. One of them, I think it's Josh, is writing a thesis on kind of how Midsommar goes around in different cultures, I think it is. And
I really hope we have the names right now.
I do. I have the list. And I managed to get Mark, especially because there's that bit where Christian's on the phone to Danny right at the beginning, and he's going, "Hey Danny, hey Danny, hey Danny, hey Danny, hey Danny," in the background.
Oh, right, yeah.
Mark's great. Mark's like my favourite character in this. He's such an arsehole.
He was so great.
He is played by Will Poulter, who recently, most recent thing I've seen him in was Black Mirror's Bandersnatch, which he played Colin.
So good.
He is a fantastic actor. He was very much the comic relief in this, but yes.
Which you wouldn't expect as well from a horror film.
That's the other thing.
It was very kind of light-hearted with him.
It's like a dark comedy, a very, very dark comedy in a lot of ways, which I wasn't expecting.
No.
But, so Pele invites them, and Danny ends up tagging along, and they're going up to Sweden to go to this festival, and so they arrive at this just this area where everybody's basically meeting up, and they take, is it like magic mushrooms?
Yeah, it's magic mushrooms.
Yeah, they take magic mushrooms and they all start going on a trip. Danny doesn't really want to at first. She wants to kind of just have a break, but she gets convinced and she ends up doing it as well.
Yeah, it's kind of peer pressure.
Yeah, and then she has a bit of a bad trip, but they're all sitting on the grass on this hill. And Mark is just sitting there going like, oh, there's new people arriving. I don't like that. Make them go away. I'm going to lie down. Everybody else lie down. And he just starts, he rambles.
That was like
really
such
funny.
a great scene to write in.
It was like, it fit very well. Mark's
Well, it's
comedy,
kind of, the
it
comedy
works.
just fits so nicely, like with all of the really suspenseful scenes.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you've got this like, Danny's kind of sat there, you know, like really freaking out to the side. But like, as much as you're focusing on her and feeling like, oh God, what's going to happen next? Like, you're also laughing along
Yeah.
with kind of the comedy that's happening. So it's kind of like this nice mix.
Yeah. A movie that came out earlier this year that, as much as I enjoyed it, I don't think it did the whole comedy and horror mixing as well, was Us, Jordan Peele.
Yeah, it was supposed to be
yeah.
like kind of horror, but it's very like, you know,
I thoroughly
specific.
enjoyed that, but he didn't mix the comedy and horror as well as he did in Get Out, which had it very much separated. Like, you had the horror and then you had the comedy from the TSA guy, whereas Us, it's very much, it comes in at random moments. Like, the dad will just make a joke when they're being threatened and it doesn't work. But in this film, it works very well. I think they mixed it a perfect amount.
Yeah. Yeah, it was
so-
really well done.
Yeah, it's great. So the group goes up to where the main kind of ground of the festival is. And again, we just have this really random bit where Mark's just like panicking about ticks because his uncle has Lyme
my
disease
God.
or something. It's apparently this part of his character, again, IMDb trivia page, thank you very much for this information. Apparently this is based on Ari Aster's own fear of ticks. Like,
Oh no.
so, and Mark wears 2 pairs of socks over his jeans so that he doesn't get bug bites, which is exactly what Ari Aster does. Just a weird fact that I managed to find.
Yeah.
It's just as you do. But completely forgot. This is just after Danny kind of has a bit of a hallucination, doesn't she? And she thinks everyone's laughing at her.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's having a bad trip, really. But they go up to this kind of main area and they meet everybody and the festivities begin, if you will, and they all sit around a dinner table and have, I don't know, it's like the weird thing, and 2 old people come out. So this elderly couple come out, I don't know if they're actually a couple or anything, and they look very upset. And they're kind of at the head of the table and they're very important.
Well, it's
and
not upset. They more look
yeah, they look,
stern.
I don't know.
It was
Yeah.
really kind of creepy.
It's, you know that they know something is going to happen, but you don't know what. It's very unnerving.
Yeah.
But they've come out and earlier when they got to the campground, they had mentioned something about people have cycles in their life according to their culture. So between the ages of, it's like when you're born and 18 or something, that's like your spring, and then between 18 and 36 or something, that's your summer, and it's until you get to the age of 72 where your life just naturally comes to a close. And that was brought up earlier and it will come into play here because they go to the edge of a cliff and there is a ritual that I'm not going to even attempt to pronounce because I can't pronounce anything.
There was kind of bits before this though.
But yeah.
Well, it's like when they get to the main village, you kind of yeah, so they've had this kind of bad trip.
Yeah.
And they get to this village and you kind of see this whole community. It's very small and kind of very
close knit.
Yeah, but it's also, it's very like they depend on nature depends on them, and it's kind of the cycle through that, and that's kind of a big theme, is like
Yes.
their connection to nature and us kind of giving back.
Yes. Yes.
That, and they've also got kind of and this is like the really symbolic part at the beginning where you kind of meet all the other friends that have been brought along. to this festival, and you get kind of this woman who I guess is the leader at this point, kind of opens up the ceremony, and she describes that, like, you know, the 9-day feast.
Yes.
So it's a 9-day festival, and each day it's a different feast.
Yeah.
And that definitely brings into what Phoebe says, is that's the very first feast.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing kind of like the feast is also representative of, like, it's not them eating so much, it's nature and giving back what they've taken each day to kind of replenish what they've taken for the next year. And it also leads on to, like, that bear. And I've forgotten the bloody line, but it was just a great comedy moment.
They walk again. We haven't planned this, so it's very all over the place if we forget stuff. There's this bit where there's just a bear in a cage, and I think it's Christian, or it could be Mark. He just goes, "Is anyone gonna mention the bear?" And one of the elders just goes, "It's a bear." That's it.
And it's just never mentioned again, like, not seen for like hours.
It's so weird.
Like, that's just it.
It's
just so
bizarre.
random and out of place.
They just literally, is anyone going to mention the bear? There's a bear. Cut to the next scene. It's so weird, but it's so funny and done well. It's just bizarre. Have I forgotten anything else?
Yeah, but then you go back to, like, the old people and what you were saying.
Yeah. Yes. So, again, haven't scripted this, so sorry if we're a little bit all over the place. So there's a ritual going on where the two elderly people that we met at the dinner table are on the top of a cliff, and they have their hands sliced. There's a shot that's in the trailer where their bloody hands are put onto this bit of stone with carvings in it, and they kind of drag their hands down, so there's all these bloody handprints. And at this point, I noticed there were a lot of rocks up there, and I was thinking, oh no, this is like a grave site or something, isn't it?
Yeah, it was kind of like you could tell.
Yeah, and everyone's at the bottom just waiting for something to happen, and they're all kind of just standing around like, what's going on? And completely forgot to mention, there are two other characters in this film that we forgot to mention. Simon and Connie, they're there as well. They are a British couple that we were introduced to by Ingmar, who is Pele's brother. Forgot to mention them. We met them earlier, but they're at the bottom of the cliff as well. They're going to be important later, and they are very much just as in the dark as Danny and her friends, because they're all outsiders that have come into this community, and they're kind of just watching, thinking, what the hell's going on? And the old woman stands at the top of the cliff, and
you can instantly kind of tell.
Yep, she just yeets herself on down, and it's messed up.
It's very graphic.
They don't shy away at all.
Yeah, you can see where they kind of get their ratings from. Is very, like, they don't shock. Like, it's just everything is very graphically done. You see everything. So, like, most films wouldn't have shown that the sister's suicide from the beginning, whereas this film, they didn't shy away.
No, at
It's
all.
like, you know, you've come in to see this 18 film. We're going to give you an 18 film.
Yeah. For reference, for anybody watching that might not be from the UK or know how our rating system works, our ratings for films go U, which is universal, PG, parental guidance, 12 or 12A, so you've got to be 12 or accompanied by an adult, 15, which is what Hereditary was rated, and then 18, which is what Midsommar was rated. So yeah, they basically had free reign to do what they want, and it was very graphic. Indeed.
It's interesting that they've gone for an 18. As, you know, it's such a limited audience. Like, you know, with a 15, you still have those teenagers going to see it, and you could tell it was kind of aimed at not 15-year-olds, but it got that 15 rating, and you had, you know, that guy in high school. You had the teenage parties and stuff, whereas this is very much like we're at uni now.
Yeah, it's much
this
more
is so
adult.
much darker. Yeah.
A lot of PG-13 rated films in America will end up getting either a 12 or a 15 rating, and it's usually a 12, and a lot of R films will end up getting a 15 or an 18. So although
it's so interesting that it has it, because so few films have that 18 rating.
Although I think quite a few, especially like horror films over in the States, might get an R. I think Hereditary was an R. That was only a 15 over here. So an 18 film over here, we don't get a lot of them.
No, we really have 15. To earn them. As when we filmmakers and film students, you really have to earn that 18 rating, and usually you're kind of advised by we have a board called the British Film Classification Board,
BBFC.
And they, they'll take a film and they'll say, well, we've given it an 18, but are you sure you want this? Because if you want to make money, it should be, a 15. Here's what to cut out. So it'd be interesting to see, why have they gone for an 18? Was it that they wanted a lesser, but they got told, there's nothing you can cut out of this?
Yeah, or it could be just Ari Aster's one of those directors that's like, I just want to make my film.
We're going to go for that 18.
Yeah, just do what we want. So, but yeah, this suicide scene is very graphic. This lady just hits this rock at the bottom of the cliff, full force. Her head's smashed in. Her face is just completely smashed in. Yeah, her face is completely smashed in. It zooms up and we see it fall backwards. It's nasty, and that's then followed by the old man who jumps feet first. Which, it's horrible. He kind of just the camera zooms out. It's a long shot, and he just hits the ground and falls, and it's very quiet, but it's just nasty to look at. And he's still alive. He's not dead.
Yeah, and it was interesting, that scene, because that kind of clued you into, something being wrong with this community. Because when the old woman fell and she instantly died, there just wasn't a reaction. But when the old man fell and just broke his legs but was still alive, that you could tell it was like something has gone wrong. Yeah. But it was also kind of like, he's in pain, so now we're going to be in pain. Yeah. It was kind of just like, one person can't suffer without the whole community suffering.
Yeah, everyone started crying and screaming.
Yeah. Because he was in pain. It's kind of, this community is so close knit that they feel everything. Or that's the idea.
Yeah, definitely. His legs are all messed up. We get a shot. It's not nice. And a couple of members that are watching, a couple of the members of the community, they come over with this big, I want to call it like a mallet. It's not a mallet.
It was,
yeah. And they just bash his head in 3 times. It's shown close up. It
was like they took turns. It was like this woman and man took turns doing it. So I think it was more like also a ritualistic thing. I don't know if they were like direct family of this man or...
Yeah, we don't exactly know. It's just some of the older members of the group just come out, and they don't react doing it. It's not like they're crying. They're just, this is what happens, basically. Yeah. And the American and British people that are visiting, Danny's friends and then Simon and Connie, they're all freaking out. Simon and Connie in particular, they're like screaming at the old man not to jump when he's going. They're just freaking out. Everybody's like, what the fuck is going on? And everyone else is just unfazed. This is normal. And Pele tries to kind of just convince them, this is what happens. This is part of our culture and what happens. And the old people are all going, oh, didn't you warn them that this is what happens? But they're like, no, thank you. They want to leave.
Yeah. And I mean, it's explained to them kind of after by this, I guess, like, leader, this woman, and she just kind of goes like, look, you have to see it from our perspective. It's not a Like, they're not unhappy to do this. They want to do this. It's
their lives have naturally come to an end.
Yeah, it's such a great honor to do it. And she kind of says that, like, you know, when my time comes, I'm going to be, like, so happy to do this.
Yeah, it's something that you are prepared for in your life. And
yeah, you give back. She was saying it's a circle.
Yeah.
So, like, there's like an unborn baby, someone's pregnant, and she said,
soul
you know,
will go into the child, isn't it?
Yeah, this child is going to be named after this woman, so that the cycle continues. So, like, the next child, I guess, will be named after the guy.
Yeah, instead of dying in pain, instead they are, in a sense, I think, reborn, and then you just carry that cycle out again.
Yes.
Again, it's the whole giving back to nature and all that such. But it doesn't matter to Connie and Simon. They're like, fuck that. We don't want to be around. And they just want to leave. So they pack their bags, and Connie is trying to find Simon. And one of the members of the group comes up and kind of goes, Simon has left to go to the train station. We've driven him away. There's only room for one person in the truck. So we've taken him, and we'll come back for you in half an hour and take you as well. But this is the last train, so we thought we'd get him. And Danny's noticed that's a bit weird. Connie and Simon are really close. They've just got engaged. That's weird to them. And she holds on to this idea that that's strange, whereas everyone else seems to be brushing it off like it's completely normal.
Yeah, that was kind of the weird bit. That's when you kind of first realise that, you know, these people aren't here as guests. You know, there's something going on.
Yeah, it's not... There's something ominous going on, really. That's what you get from that. But later, Connie also disappears, and they just assure her that she's left as well. So we then kind of cut to...
Oh, no, it's that scene as well.
Is this the tree
that we
scene?
realise... No, it's when we realise something's wrong with Chris. Because you get this kind of... They're all sat at the dinner table again, and kind of, you know, Connie...
Is this the drink? The drink one?
Yes. He doesn't show up. And, to go back, the night before, one of them wakes up and sees that someone has put, like, a
love rune
or something, under his bed.
Yeah, there's a redhead girl in the tribe who, earlier on, they're all sitting around and they're doing this dance, and she kicks Chris, and she kind of looks at him in this very, I don't know how to put it, flirtatious way, and we are shown kind of like a tapestry, it looks like, and it kind of it's just weird. It shows a bunch of stuff, and I pointed it out to you in the cinema, that there's a couple panels where it looks like somebody kicks somebody else, and then it shows almost exactly the same shot of somebody looking at somebody in the same way. So we were kind of just like, oh, okay, this is where the film's gonna go.
Yeah, but it was interesting how it was shot, because it's just kind of this tapestry that, you know, it's very, like, you know, symbolic, this is going to happen. But it was just very interestingly shot, 'cause it's just a series of pictures.
But it basically spells out where the film's going to go.
Unnerving to look at.
Because it starts off very normal with, like, just a group of people, and then it cuts to, like, it eventually devolves into, like, a lady cutting her pubic hair and menstruating into a cup, which is that'll come along in a second. But yeah, so this ginger girl has got up from her bed and put a love rune under Christian's bed. She's obviously taken a liking to him, and is it Josh that notices it and takes the rune to somebody else and asks what it is? Yeah, he kind of just says, you know, what's this, because he saw her put it under there, and I think is it Pele that explains that it's a love rune?
It's a love rune, and they kind of take it as a joke at first. Yeah,
to cast a spell to make somebody fall in love with you, and they could just kind of like brush it off, like, oh, that's just, you know, whatever. But it's not, because as we were saying, there's a dinner scene, but very quickly before we get back to that, I've just realised that the tree scene is before that, because this is that dinner table scene is where Mark disappears. Yeah, so they're just kind of standing around, and Mark needs the loo, so he goes to take a pee by a tree that's just lying on the ground, a dead tree. And earlier we had seen the members of the community shoveling in ash from where they had burned the bodies of the 2 old people into this tree. And he's peeing by this tree, and one of the members of the group is going, no, 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 get away from it, what are you doing? And yelling at him, and he's like, oh, you're pissing on my ancestors, or something like that.
And he starts like, he just breaks down and cries.
Yeah, and everyone else
is
is
really
just like,
weird.
Everyone's crying, and Pele's just kind of like, I'm sorry, they didn't realise, that's our ancestors, you can't do that. But, yeah, so everyone's kind of got a bit of a vendetta against Mark at this point. He's kind of the friend that turns up, and he doesn't have any respect for other people's culture, and he's just going to be a bit of a dick the whole time.
Yeah.
He's a good old Logan Paul in Japan. But
God.
very old reference at this point. But yeah, so later on we're at the dinner table, and we noticed everybody has a yellowy, cloudy, yellowy drink, apart from Christian, who has this like orangey, reddish drink.
It's a very specific colour that
compared
when
to everyone else's.
you mix a red with a yellow and you get that colour.
And this is because, or at least it's implied, it's because the red-headed girl has menstruated into his cup.
Yes,
Yum.
and it's also the scene where they are all each given a pie.
Yes.
And as they are given this pie, Christian bites into it and pulls out a pubic hair.
Because Mark's just like,
so
dude,
disgusting.
is that a pube? And they're all just like, I'm sure it's nothing. But Mark just thinks it's really funny. But there's a lady that's been eyeing Mark for quite a bit of the film, and she comes over to him and kind of
it's never really talked about or mentioned. You just kind of see her in the back of some shots.
Mark, I think a couple times he mentions like, oh, these women are hot and stuff, but she kind of says, oh, do you want to come over here? He obviously takes it as she wants to sleep with him, and he's just like, yeah, okay, I'll see you guys later. And we don't see him again after that. He's just gone. But yeah, he did and skinned. Yeah, Mark's dead at this point. I am just reading through the Wikipedia article to get the rest of this. But yeah, so I don't know, when is it mentioned about the member of the group that's born of incest?
Oh, that's kind of a bit, again, we've forgotten to mention, because we didn't plan.
Yeah, we didn't plan this. This is very messy. We're very sorry. From now on, we'll be
We're just pointing out, like the key bits and kind of going through everything. But basically,
there's a member of, they have a book that I think they're reading from it around the time that you have the suicides on the cliff.
Yes, but basically, before we kind of get to that bit, the bit we kind of, I guess, forgotten about is
Josh reading the book.
Not only that, but you find out that kind of Josh has gone along because he's writing this thesis. They're all at university. This is kind of, his final piece for university. And Christian has yet to write his. He doesn't know what he's doing. But Josh is very set on writing his thesis about Midsommar. And yeah, he finds out that they have kind of this scripture, this book, which lays out, all their laws, all their beliefs. And that kind of, it gets, he kind of realizes there's this book and wants to know more about it. He's not allowed to take any pictures or, read. He can't read from it. It's in like their own language.
Yeah.
But yeah, you find out more about this book as it kind of goes on. And you kind of find out that, half of this book, they've got like hundreds and hundreds of these books, and kind of a specific oracle, I think they were called.
Yeah, the one they currently have is called Reuben, and he's the one in the trailer that's kind of deformed.
Yes.
Yeah, he writes it and they interpret it. He paints on the pages.
Yeah, he's not able to write.
Yeah.
So he paints and they kind of take what they want from it. But I I think it's very interesting because, as they said in that, and it kind of links to Hereditary as well, it's that he is disabled, he's got this disability, but he's not seen as, he's not seen as lesser than anyone else. In a way, they put him higher because he's been, as they say, he's been bred for this through incest.
Yeah.
So it's seen that, like, this one oracle was born from this one family, so they keep it in this family kind of thing.
Yeah. I think is it Josh that mentions beforehand, he asks, or it might be Christian, they kind of ask, with such a close-knit community, do you have a lot of incestual activity that happens? And somebody mentions, oh no, because
they said
we bring
cousins are allowed on very rare occasions,
because we're
but
aware
apart
of the
from
incest
that,
taboo.
Yes,
They say that they bring in outsiders to have children, which again, with the whole thing with Christian, kind of comes into play. But in particular with the oracles, they are bred from incest, and then they are the oracles, but they are usually in a way disabled or deformed because of incest, the way they've been born.
Yes, but it also says, it said that kind of, wasn't it like he had eyes unclouded, like, because we've got, I guess because I don't know, it's hard to put into words.
They think that because he is, I guess it's because he has this,
he's childlike, so he's not able to judge.
He's
there's
not
no
clouded
judgment
by everything that most people are.
Yeah, there's no judgment, there's no bad in him, so he's like unclouded by influence and everything like that. Like, whenever you see him, he's very much alone.
They keep him to himself, and he is again unclouded, so he is the person that writes all their scriptures. Well, he paints them and they interpret it, but that book is shown to Josh earlier on in the film, which will come into play later. I have forgotten which bit we were talking about before we went on about the incest thing. So Mark's disappeared, but after that, Josh decides to go back and look at the books which he was shown earlier and asked if he could take pictures of, and he goes and takes pictures of them secretively when he's not supposed to.
Well, it's not really secretly. He's in front of a window with his flash on.
Yeah, and I swear that we see somebody asleep in the room as well.
Yes,
like the old guy that said no.
It's where Reuben sleeps.
Yeah, so he very unsubtly goes to take a bunch of pictures, and somebody comes up behind him, who we presume is Mark, because it looks like Mark. And Josh is kind of like, oh my god, you scared the crap out of me. But then we see it's not Mark, it's somebody wearing Mark. Quite literally. Mark's been skinned, and he's a skin suit. He's a nice old skin suit. And
that was bizarre.
That's one of the... Unlike Hereditary, where it's kind of like very normal, and then, there's a weird scene, and then it kind of builds up, and then shit hits the fan in the last 10 minutes. This one is very, like, you just get these random bits every now and again.
It was also, it was very random, and it didn't really feel like it had any significance other than to, kill off this side character.
Yeah,
it
comes
just kind
to
of
play
like,
near the end.
Yeah, we need to kind of, get him out of the way. How do we do that? We skin him in a Leatherface kind of way.
Connie and Simon's made a lot more sense because, spoiler alert, they're dead if you didn't figure it out
already. Well, that's
the
thing. You only see Simon.
Yeah. Well,
Connie
we do see Connie, because there's a bit where they're wheeling a body on like a...
Oh, yes, yeah.
Which I couldn't tell that was her until a little while later. I was like, oh, that's where she went. But Josh gets beaten over the head and killed, although he's kind of like twitching. But no, he's dead. And
he's killed by...
I think it's Reuben wearing...
Yeah, it's not very clear who kills him, because you can't really see under the mask.
Oh yeah, it won't be Reuben actually, because his eyes look normal.
Yeah, it seemed like there were two people in the room. Reuben does kind of the deed.
Yeah.
But it was very like, you know, you got to piece it together.
Yeah. So Josh is missing, and the book has gone missing. There's an announcement at the table that the book's gone missing, and they are obviously trying to kind of put the blame on Christian, or at least the Americans, because Christian earlier decided that he was also going to do his thesis on the tribe, the community, which Josh wasn't a fan of, but the book's gone and they are kind of blaming him, and he is very quick to throw Josh under the rug. He's like, oh yeah, we don't associate with that guy, by the way, don't think that we do, kind of thing. Christian's a dick.
He's changed his tune a lot from, like, you know, these really close friends to just, you know, I'm gonna succeed.
Yeah, Christian's a dick, basically.
He really is.
He really is. But after that, Danny is taken away to kind of do this dancing thing that the women do, and Christian is taken
to pick their May Queen.
Yes. Oh,
and it's whoever lasts the longest.
That has been mentioned earlier as well, but it comes more into play later. But Christian's taken away to a separate, like, room where we do see a picture of a bear on fire, painted on the wall, which will come into play again later.
Yeah.
In fact, is it always Christian that brings up the bear?
Yes, it is.
Is he the one that brought it up at the beginning and said, is anyone going to mention the bear?
I think the first time was Simon, actually.
I don't know.
The very first time was Simon, because it's, I've forgotten the name of the Swedish guy who brought the main group.
Pelle.
It's Pelle's brother who says it's just a bear.
Yeah, his name is Ingmar. So, yeah. There's a picture of this bear on fire that's been drawn on the wall, and Christian's kind of staring at it. Yeah, symbolism. That'll come back later. I was quite literally looking at it thinking, okay, we've got to look for that out later. It's very obvious when they do something in these movies.
Well, it's just kind of like you didn't hear about the bear for ages.
Yeah, and then
it's been like an hour since we've seen the bear.
It's
and
so
now
weird.
It's like the bear's on fire in this picture. You're like, oh,
okay, the bear is important. Yeah, and one of the ladies kind of brings him through to a separate room and just kind of goes, oh, what do you think of Maya, who is the red-headed girl that put her love rune under his pillow and put her pubes in a pie and menstruated into his drink?
The normal way to court your boyfriend.
You know, when you've got a crush on a guy, do it the Maya way.
Oh, God.
Please don't. We don't want to be sued.
No.
But they kind of just go, yeah, what do you think of Maya? And he's just like, what do you mean? And they're just like, oh, it's been approved for you to sleep with her.
It was like mate with her. You've been approved to mate.
And he's just kind of like, what? Very confused.
Well, he's confused at first. But it's just like, you know, he's got his girlfriend, Danny, and
who he doesn't like.
He's just kind of like, he's not against the idea. He never says, like, no.
Yeah, he seems very conflicted. Like, he knows it's wrong because he's in a relationship, but it's a relationship he doesn't want to be a part of. He doesn't really care about her the same way that he did, or in a romantic way, and he's obviously interested. But he kind of, I mean, we presume he walks off or something because we don't see him until he's at the May Queen dance thing where Danny's dancing around. They dance around in a circle and they spin around, and basically people just start getting knocked out. They literally just like run into each other. It's kind of funny.
It lasted for a good, like, what was it, 10-20 minutes?
I would say it's like 5-10 minutes. Yeah, it lasted for a while.
It felt like a really long time.
Yeah.
But I guess it's supposed to. I think that was just how it was filmed, because it did take place over, like, you know, this entire day.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a long thing because there's a lot of women that are in at the beginning, and one by one they kind of, well, they get knocked out of the thing. They either collapse because they've been spinning around, they're dizzy, or they bash into other people, and it goes down and down and down until Danny's one of the last 8 girls. And she keeps trying to get Christian's attention, and he's just being a bit of a dick, really, and like looking away, just like, oh, whatever. She's obviously quite upset. She cares for him, and he doesn't feel the same way. But Danny ends up winning, and she's the new May Queen. And this is the part, you might want to talk about this. This is the part where we notice the flowers and the fact that they're moving.
Yes, I think it's because you see kind of all the way through this film is they're always given drinks. They're always given drugs of some sort.
It's like water with these weird flowers in, and they try to pass it off as like tea.
Yes.
It's bizarre.
But I think it's back to that. I think it goes back to kind of the theme of nature. And I think they believe that, you use these kind of natural, mushrooms or like just these natural drugs as a way to, stimulate yourself and, perform better. Because we're all seen taking them throughout the film.
Yeah, it's like one of the main things they always have it at the dinner table, like as their drinks and such.
Yes, and I think it is just like, they're so new to it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a way for them to be pliant.
Well, when they're on their very first drug trip with the magic mushrooms at the beginning, there is a part where Pele mentions something about, can you feel like the trees breathing?
Yes,
and
can
such.
you see? Yeah, and he's just like, can you feel the energy from the trees? And it's always Danny.
Yeah,
who
you can see the background.
Down.
The background is moving like a little bit. If you look at, they've obviously like distorted it, and she looks down at her feet, and there's like grass growing through her feet, or is it her hands?
I think her hand at the beginning,
it's her hand
and
and it's
feet
her feet
when
later.
she starts dancing.
Yeah, and it's kind of that connection to nature. But at this point, later on when they've taken them again, she's been crowned May Queen. There's a couple of pink flowers in her headband because she's covered in flowers, and it's like they're breathing almost. It's bizarre.
I think it's because you don't really see anyone else doing that, and I think it's more she's being the most affected by what she's going through, because as Pele brings up earlier, these people gave him a family, and so she's the most open to what they're trying to do.
Yeah, because she doesn't have a family anymore.
She's like, connecting more to their beliefs, connecting more to their idea of nature. So I think it's more representing that, she's
becoming one with
now. Yes, she's
group, yeah.
now like becoming one with them. And so everything around her is just like breathing. She knows that, you know, she's connected to the nature. She's connected to these people.
She's not really panicking about it at this point. Like, we see there's food on the table that's like being distorted, and she's not panicking or anything. She's very just calm compared to Christian, who is having a bit of a complete meltdown. He's very stressed and anxious.
Yes, but I think that's also because it seems that he's being given different drugs to her.
Yes.
Because if you look at the drugs she's given, everyone drinks those. If you look at his, they're very specifically his.
Yeah, he's being given some that's going to, I'm presuming they are to kind of coerce him into having this mating ritual with Maya.
Yeah. Honestly, the weirdest scene of
We'll
the
get to
film.
that in a second. It's bizarre. So they kind of have this dinner, and Danny gets taken away in like a carriage to go and do this whole May Queen thing where she like blesses their crops. Meanwhile, Christian follows Maya into a barn for the weirdest scene. I can't even describe this. It's the weirdest. Okay, he follows her into a barn, and he has a robe on, and he just opens the door, and there's all these naked old women. They're just standing there. It's full-on nudity, full frontal nudity. Nobody's like batting an eyelid about it. And Maya's lying in a bed of flowers, and she like opens her legs, and he just comes over, and they do the devil's tango, the frickety frack. They do that jazz. And all the old women around them start imitating the noises that they're making.
Not only that, but they start touching themselves, and it's such an awkward,
it's so
horrible
weird
scene to watch.
They're just stood around like they're getting pleasure out of it. It's so uncomfortable. Me and you were just sat there like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, it was honestly just like, what is this film? What are they doing?
It's been weird so far, but this is a new level. And
I think it's when this old woman...
comes up behind him.
Oh god, it's just like they're having intercourse, and this woman comes up and touches his butt and like starts pushing.
She's
him.
urging him on. It's so weird.
Bad.
Oh, and all these old women are really getting into it around it. They're really getting into this moment. They're getting fully worked up. It's so weird. And Maya's just like, yes, we have to go all the way. And meanwhile, Danny is coming back from her May Queen thing. And she hears these old women making these very inappropriate sounds in a barn, and she wants to go and look at what's going on. And the people that are with her,
it's the fact you can hear it from she's like a good, she's the next
5
building
meters
away from this building.
It's like 10 meters away, and they're so loud. And she's just like, what's going on in there? And they're all like, oh, you don't need to see that. So they're all very aware that like Christian has been picked for this mating ritual, and she doesn't care. She wants to go and see, and she looks through the keyhole, sees her boyfriend is having sex with Maya, and she gets very upset and runs into a barn for another weird scene where it's intercut with Christian and Maya with their weird sex ritual, and Danny crying on the floor. And how do I even describe this?
This scene I found really, like, it was quite pivotal in a way to the film.
Yeah, it definitely is.
That's when she properly becomes one of them, one of the community, is that you see her, like, she's distraught over this. Like,
she's sobbing.
This guy that has carried her through everything. Like, it's that grief, all that grief brought back. And you see that she's, like, now part of this community.
Yeah, they are all gathered around her
you see,
on the floor.
Like, she's having this, like, panic attack. She's just having a really hard time. She's sobbing. And they all these girls that she's, like, with.
They mimic her.
Yes, they don't mimic her.
Yeah, they're all breathing together, and then they all start sobbing. It's kind of like how at the scene earlier where the old man jumped off the cliff and everyone started crying when he was screaming. It's kind of in the same way. You said it's like they're feeling his pain.
Yes,
it's kind of in the same way.
One person suffers.
Everyone
suffers.
does at the same time. And
yes.
it's intercut with the part of Christian with his weird ritual and Danny sobbing with the other women, and it's very effective, I think, personally. It's very well done. Christian's kind of been dragged into this cult thing, and Danny is really getting into becoming a member of this community. She's fully kind of being accepted as a member of the community, and Tristan does his thing, and then Maya just curls up in a ball and rocks around and goes, yes, I can feel the baby.
Yeah, she's just like, I can feel it in me.
I can feel the baby. And he's just sitting there like, what the fuck is going on?
I think that's when he realizes something has gone
he finally realizes
horribly wrong.
That it took him bloody long enough, to be honest. It's just weird, but
he gets up fully naked.
He gets up and just legs it.
Yeah, he kind of legs it outside. Realizes he's naked when he kind of sees people standing around. That was really funny. And he kind of finds this flower bed with Josh's
Simon.
leg?
Oh yes, it's Josh's leg has been buried very unsubtly. It's just sticking out of the ground.
Just in this flower bed.
Yeah, so he runs into a separate room.
Well, that's another thing. It's in the flower bed because, again, I guess
it's with nature,
like,
yeah.
Yeah, and like, as gross as it sounds, you see this all the time on like crime shows and crime, movies where you see people have like buried bodies as fertilizer, and I'm
Yeah,
pretty sure
yeah,
that's what they've done here.
They have
It's
been
just-
returned to the earth in a way.
Yes, yeah. And
Yeah.
then he goes on to find Simon.
Yeah,
in
he
a
goes into this
chicken
room.
pan.
Simon has been. If anybody here has seen Hannibal, there is.
Yes, God, yeah.
Yes, it's the first thing I thought of. There is one murder in Hannibal where they find the crime scene, and it's like a couple have had their backs cut open so they look like angels, and their skin's been pulled, and it's exactly the same. His back's been cut open and the skin has been pulled out, so it's holding him up, and he's got flowers in his eyes. Yeah, that's Simon. Simon's dead. And Christian is, like, freaking out, and then somebody, like, paralyzes him?
Yeah, they blow kind of like a drug in his face,
Yeah.
which he inhales, and yeah.
And he is paralyzed, and the next thing we know, he's waking up, and he's at kind of another ritual, and he can't speak or move, and he's in, like, this wheelchair. And Danny is she's in this mountain of flowers, just as you do. And they are standing by this massive yellow building that we saw earlier. And the people in the community, I mean, it is a cult, more or less, but they're saying that 9 human sacrifices have to be offered. So they were 4 outsiders, which were Josh, Mark, Simon, and Connie. Then 4 cult members. There were 2 elderly people that were dead already. They were, like, made into these weird dolls.
Yeah, with like stick arms.
Yeah, it wasn't the 2 elderly people we saw earlier because they had been burned. So this was
Yes.
2 completely different people. And then 2 living volunteers, which are Ingmar, Pele's brother, and then there's a man as well who chooses to be part of the sacrifice. And then Danny, as she's the May Queen, she has to choose the final victim. So they have this weird, like, lottery thing, and it's like there's writing on each of these balls, and they pull like a lever, and one of the balls comes out, and that means there's one person in the group. And she basically either has to choose whether this one randomly selected member of the group or Christian will be the final sacrifice. And
They
of
kind of
course,
set that up as really tense, and I was just like, you know who should.
you know who's gonna pick. Yeah, it's gonna be Christian. And so it randomly switches to this bit with this man teaching these children how to disembowel a bear. Again, the bear's back. He's just like, oh yeah, do it here and everything. And they take the organs out, and the next thing we know, Christian's been stuffed into the bear suit, Five Nights at Freddy's style. So
Oh God.
he's in this bear, it's nasty, and they've put him, like, in the middle of this yellow building, where all these other people that have been prepared, Josh, Mark, Simon, and Connie, and then those 2 older cult members and Ingmar and the other man, they're all in there, they're ready, and they put Josh right in the middle, and 3 members of the cult come in. Cult again. I'm just going to call it a cult. It is a cult. They come in, and
It's a community, Phoebe.
The community. I'm sorry, it's the society. They come in and set fire to all the hay that's in the building, and the place goes up in flames. And they've given Ingmar and the other man that are still alive. They give them bits from a yew tree. Like
It's
sap.
supposed to give them like courage. And...
One of them, it stops him from having pain, and the other one, it stops him from having fear.
Yeah, or I think it's meant to symbolize that because they
Yeah.
both definitely.
Oh
feel
god,
it.
yeah. They were both. It was funny because the guy that had the one that said no pain, he was the one that started screaming, and then the guy that said no fear is very clearly paranoid. So I guess in a way it's just showing, yeah, this doesn't work. This is a load of bullshit. But they are kind of sat there. They're ready. Josh can't move or talk, and he's just obviously sat there like, oh shit. And the place goes up in flames. The 2 living people start screaming, and we see the bear, the symbolism of the bear being burned. It's finally come into play. And the place goes up in flames, the building burns down, and the community outside are all, again, they're just sobbing, they're crying, they're freaking out like they did earlier. Again, it's this whole thing of they all feel whatever happens in this group.
Yeah, the community members who are in this kind of burning building, they feel that pain.
Yeah. And Danny starts crying and freaking out. In this flower costume, the best way I can describe it is if Jabba the Hutt was made of flowers. I genuinely don't know how else to describe it, because it's all I could think of when I was watching it. And it's so distracting because I kind of wanted to laugh. But she is sobbing, and then eventually she just looks at it and she smiles, and we know that she's completely been she's part of this group now. She's, I guess, what's the word, like, initiated in a way, or
yes, yeah,
she's part of this group now. She's gonna stay. I'm wondering if, like, she ends up getting together with, like, Pele or something, because he did show an interest in her. But yeah, she's part of this group now. And then cut to black, followed by very happy theme music, very similar to how they did it in Hereditary.
Yeah, I mean, it went so well with the theming of the film.
It being unnerving.
But it was still such an unnerving thing. And again, like, way back to the beginning now, but the film opens with just this totally unnerving score.
Yes.
And it's so just, you can feel just the tension from it, and it's just so, and it's intercut with kind of these scenes of winter.
Yes, I forgot about that.
Yes, winter and kind of darkness and all of this kind of thing, and I
think
that's
is a complete parallel to later on where everything's bright and
but
vibrant.
I think it's kind of more symbolic of, like, you have these dark shots of winter, darkness, coldness with snow, and as it's snowing, that's when you cut to, I'm just going to call it, the worst moment in Danny's life.
Yeah.
Because that all happens
This is
in
the darkest
snow.
moment in her life.
Yes. Cut to, her summer, when she, she finds this new family in this, cult.
It's a cult, yeah.
But she finds this new family, and it's gone from, that dark winter to this really dark music to finishing with her in bright flowers. But like, this very beautiful day,
music, upbeat,
very
happy.
Playing. Yeah. So it's like this 180.
It's the stark contrast of the beginning. So that's a very basic rundown of Midsommar, what happens. I was thinking maybe it would be interesting to kind of go over some of the similarities between this and Hereditary, since these are Ari Aster's only 2 current movies that he has out, full-length films, because there are a lot of similarities, I think, between this. He very much has a style, as this thing mentioned earlier, the trivia about having bashed-in faces. Somebody always gets set on fire. There's somebody making weird noises. Happy music at the end.
You just won't understand that unless you see the film.
Please watch both. I would be interested. Did you prefer this or did you prefer Hereditary?
I preferred this one, I have to say.
Yeah.
And my reasoning is just, I found the cinematography and editing just so much more unsettling, and the theming as well. It was just, it affected me more than when I watched Hereditary, because I found Hereditary, although the second half of it really was, it lived up to all of that, it's just the first half did seem more like, your normal horror film. And I know it was meant to be like that, to subvert your expectations, but I liked this one so much more. Yeah. Just because I sat there and I went, what the fuck just happened? Yeah. What have I just witnessed? And I love that from a film. But what one did you prefer?
This is interesting. We could discuss this. I personally preferred Hereditary.
Okay.
Hereditary was my favorite film last year. I thought it was example of the perfect horror movie. This one, on the other hand, I thought it was fantastic. I think it's more disturbing It's definitely more disturbing, and it's
Yeah.
definitely left me more like, what the fuck just happened? But Hereditary was just so... I can't put my finger on it. It took the very basic family dynamic, very typical horror movie. This is a family and they end up having X bad thing happen to them and something about a cult. And it just did it so perfectly. And it's still, despite it being a genre that and a theme that I think's been done so much in horror, it still managed to surprise me and scare me. And I don't get freaked out very easily with horror films, but that movie did freak me out. And I guess in a way I feel like Hereditary, I feel like you can take a look at stuff in it, like you can use the argument of, I guess, Annie and her family is born into this cult that her mum is a part of, and even though she tries to get away from it, it ends up coming back to her in the end, that there's this inevitability to their lives because her brother, she tried to rope her brother into it, her mum did, and then he ended up committing suicide, which meant Annie's family got involved instead, and you have the whole thing with Charlie, and then everybody in their family ends up dying, and Peter takes on Paimon, however you say it, he ends up possessing him. There's something tragic, I think, about the way Hereditary works, with the fact that there is this inevitability that they are going to be taken and put into this cult because the cult orchestrated Charlie's accident with their symbol everywhere and everything like that. I personally find that it works so perfectly, whereas I felt there were I thoroughly enjoyed this. I think I gave this like an 8 out of 10. It was like a solid, really good horror movie, and I definitely wasn't disappointed. But I don't know, there were just certain things about it that I felt like were a bit, I want to say random, but not in like a way that it felt like it had been...
Yeah, I felt it was
planned.
random to throw you off.
Yeah.
You know, because we had Hereditary, which was very, as you said, you know, this inevitability that they're going to be part of this cult, whether they like it or not. Whereas with this film, it was very uncertain.
Yeah.
You're like, is she going to do it? Is she not? Who's actually going to become part of the cult? Who is going to die?
Yeah.
And I really like that because I like not knowing. Whereas Hereditary, it was just a bit like,
yeah,
you know, come on, when are they?
Yeah.
When is it?
I liked how Hereditary was a lot slower. I've got to say, I did like the fact that this movie, because funnily enough, I had actually seen Chris Stuckman's review for this before I saw it, and he said that it felt slower than Hereditary, which I disagree with. I think
I disagree with that.
Yeah, Hereditary seemed a lot slower, because
it took a while for the gore to kick in with this film, but I liked that.
Yeah,
because I felt with Hereditary there were a few bits that were just like, it's kind of gory for no reason.
Yeah.
You know, like that nothing's happened so far. Let's just, you know, throw this in.
Yeah.
Whereas this one was very well like structured. You weren't sure when certain things were going to happen.
I have to say the beginning of this film, so from the bit where she's on the opening with the snowing up until she's crying on the couch with Christian, that is, I think, the perfect horror film opening. It's fantastic. It's so well done. It's that sense of dread. It's shocking, and it just knocks you off. You don't know what to expect from the rest of the film. But at the same time, I felt like, I guess in this one, because they had that bit with the tapestry in it and such, I guessed where it was going for quite a lot of it. And I thoroughly enjoyed it.
You could guess kind of Christian's route. It was
kind
of Danny.
He was going to end up with Maya for this ritual of having a child. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I think it's a great look at grief and I guess how it can change a person, because if Danny hadn't had this tragedy happen at the beginning, she probably wouldn't have ended up how she did at the end. The whole point is she's vulnerable because she's in this state of mind that they were able to kind of take advantage of her and get her into this group.
It's very much about, you know, about loss, about...
Yeah. And
kind
again,
of how it can change you.
Yeah, Hereditary is, I would say it's the same themes, because the whole thing is Annie opens up to the idea of like the seance and everything because Charlie's died, because she's grieving over Charlie. And I guess the difference between how she grieved over her mother versus Charlie, and just how it changes the whole family dynamic, like her relationship with Peter, she blames him for the death and everything. They have this very similar themes, but they go about them so differently. And I think this movie is a lot more disturbing in the fact that it's like grief can do this very disturbing thing to a person. It can change a person from, because at the beginning with like the suicides on the cliff, it's
also how you view death.
Yeah.
Death is viewed very differently in each film.
Yeah.
Like this one, it's viewed as an end of a cycle.
It's something that happens.
New one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas like Hereditary, it felt very final.
Yeah.
Like, you're dead, someone takes your place. Like that's how it kind of felt.
Yeah.
So it was interesting to see the difference. So there was still that grief and that loss there. But it's just the way that death is seen in each film is very different.
Yeah. This is probably going to sound a bit weird, but I feel like Midsommar in a way is more upbeat with its ending. Because the ending of Midsommar, Danny, she's lost everybody.
There's someone doing work behind my house.
So. I thought so. Although she's lost her family, she's discovered this new family. She's part of this new family. She's seen all these things. At the beginning with the suicide, she's so shocked and disgusted by it. But then by the time you get to the end, she's smiling at this ritual. Compare that to Hereditary, where it's very much... They don't get that closure, that happy ending in a way. They are in this cult that they've been trying to escape, and it's just it was inevitable regardless of if they wanted to be part of it or not. Whereas I guess in this one it was kind of her slow descent into becoming a part of this group.
Yeah, but it's interesting the different this community is now going to be a cult.
Yeah.
But it's interesting seeing the different cults from each film as well.
Yes.
Because you've got the plain witches in Hereditary.
It's a very stereotypical,
but it's very like it's the paganism.
We're worshipping the king of hell.
Very stereotypical paganism and hell. Looking at the darkness, and then you get this one, and it's still, if you kind of look at the the community, this cult, it's still very paganistic.
It's messed up, but
because they still use kind of the pagan rituals, like the building they burn the bodies in.
Yeah.
It's like a I guess the pyramid. So you've got the three sides, you've got the three people who come in and burn it.
Yeah.
And it is very paganistic, but you've got the Hereditary, which looks at Satan, hell, darkness, and then you've got this Midsommar.
Hereditary is a lot more pessimistic.
Yes, but Midsommar is also paganistic. It's like a pagan thing that they celebrate, and you've got Midsommar, which is very like new life, new beginnings, because you've got Danny has been given a new beginning by the end of the film. Yeah. And it is very light-hearted and very like I mean, it's not godly at all.
No, but
it's very light compared to the darkness of
I feel like in a way Hereditary, it's like they're looking at the same thing from opposite angles. Like Hereditary's looking at cults as an outsider that is being dragged into this, whereas Midsommar's from the perspective of somebody that is a part of this group.
Yes, but it would also be quite interesting to see where he goes in his next one.
Yeah.
Because it feels like you've got the witches, which is very American. It's a very American way of looking at them. And then you've got this Swedish way of looking at them. And a very different, like 180
it's European.
So it would be very interesting to see where he goes for his next one, whether that's like Asia or just somewhere completely different. Would be really interesting to see.
Well, Ari Aster, he did say fairly recently that Midsommar is like a companion piece to Hereditary, which it definitely seems like it is. And
is that kind of to say that they take place in the same...
companion piece, I would say that kind of makes me think of like they are two films that can be viewed as carrying the same kind of theme or something of the sort.
Themes and beliefs.
Yeah, and
which we can kind of see through his, staple thing in each film, like the fire,
the
cult, it's almost respect for your elders as well.
Yeah, I would be interested to see if his next film is something very similar and that it's also following the same kind of path, or if it's just a completely different thing. Like if he just does an entirely different movie, because Midsommar was greenlit. It was announced more or less exactly at the same time Hereditary was released. So they came out they were done very close to each other, and Midsommar had a very short production time. So it would be interesting to see, because he hasn't announced a new movie yet, but it would be very interesting to see if he did something else to do with cults and witchcraft and all that jazz, or if he just decides to take a completely different path for his next film.
Yeah.
Because he writes and directs. He's written and directed both of these. So I'm not... What kind of film... This might be interesting. What kind of film would you like him to do next with his specific type of style?
I mean, he's very good at, subverting different things. We've had kind of witches. I think it'd be really interesting to see him do one of the classic monsters, but bring it into his theming.
Yeah.
So maybe he takes the vampire, just, your general monster, maybe like a Frankenstein type of idea, but just taking a really traditional idea and updating it to modern horror standards. Yeah. Because we expect a lot more now. Like, you get a vampire film comes out in the cinema and everyone's like, well, we know what's going to happen.
We have higher expectations, yeah.
Yes, it would be great to see him completely subvert that.
Yeah.
Whether that's back to the cult thing, you've got a cult who drinks, going by his theming, menstrual blood.
As you do.
He would. It's just whether it's something like that.
Yeah.
Or whether it's the idea of we've had death, so now maybe move on to the idea of resurrection and going for Frankenstein's monster type of thing.
That would be interesting.
Can you bring someone back?
Look, I guess in a way you could look at it at the perspective of kind of, I guess...
The idea of souls.
Yeah.
Would be very interesting to see.
That would be
him.
A very interesting way to go around it. Yeah.
Yeah, but what about you? What would you like to see him do?
Might sound a bit odd. I think it would be interesting to see how he goes about, I guess a home invasion movie. Just because they are so set in stone with kind of the way it goes. If you think about something like The Strangers and Hush and all that kind of thing. They're very...
we have, the very few movies where it's, someone invades the home and then it turns out the homeowner's actually, the villain in all of this. I guess you could say Don't Breathe. That was a very... Yeah. It's a very crude example, but...
Yeah. Something like...
It's one that's there.
Yeah, like that. Or there's a film on Netflix, Await Further Instructions.
Yes.
Something like that. I would be very intrigued to see a movie where you kind of have people in a very small location and it's kind of, you put them in a very tense situation.
So a very you've got 3 rooms maybe, something like that.
Yeah, something where they're in a small area, it's a very tense situation and it kind of looks at how people behave. Have you seen Circle by any chance?
Yes, I have.
Something like that.
It's not the one with Emma Watson.
No, the one with a bunch of people.
The horror film where they have to choose who dies.
That kind of thing. I'd be very interested to see how he did something like that. Just because it's so different. but I think if you went into like the psychology of the way that people thought, it could have a very interesting outcome. And because they're movies that, especially like home invasion movies, they are so similar and by the book at this point, where it's just like this happens and then this happens. He could do it interestingly.
Like that. Yeah, something like that. He could almost bring back, not a Saw film, but bringing back the idea of these people in a desperate situation,
resorting to desperate measures.
Yes.
Yeah. That
like, how far is a human willing to go? It's kind of like the Saw traps.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like he could take that genre of, what is it, like gore porn? Or
torture porn, yeah.
Torture porn. Like, taking that and definitely updating it. That needs to be updated. Like, we haven't had a good gory horror film in a while.
Yeah. And
like,
even then, Saw, like the first Saw film, if you're looking at it from the aspect of,
it was
regardless
brilliant.
of the gore, the aspect of seeing how far a person is willing to go just to keep themselves alive, I think that could be a very interesting look. And I mentioned it earlier, but Us, in a way, that's a home invasion movie at the beginning. It kind of turns into a nation invasion movie, if you will. But it kind of does look at how far the mother, Adelaide, in that film is willing to go to protect her own family. And I think doing something like that, a very, very closed situation with a group of people, they're put in very high stakes, I would really be interested to see how he would handle that kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you've seen it, but there's this film, I'm going to have to look up the director. There's a film called High Rise.
I haven't seen it. It's the one with Tom Hiddleston, isn't it? Oh, wait, or am I thinking of something else?
Yes, it is. Tom Hiddleston.
I remember
it was
mentioned in film class.
Yes, it's a horror drama kind of sci-fi.
I've never seen it.
Absolutely brilliant. It's Ben Wheatley.
Oh, right.
He's such a brilliant, like, love his films. But something like High Rise, where you have this closed off community, one building, and you throw in something that just breaks it all up.
Yeah.
And it's like something like that, where that film kind of looks at social class.
Yeah.
And how, how does the rich, how the rich would survive, how the poor would survive, how the middle class would survive.
Almost like in a way The Purge. The way that the different Purge films look at the different classes.
But it's done in just one building.
Yeah.
And it's incredible. Definitely watch it.
I'll give that a look.
But I think he could almost take something like that.
Yeah.
But maybe as you say, a smaller setting would just be really interesting.
When you said about people in a building, something like that, I immediately for some reason thought the Belko Experiment, which
also
is another one that would be interesting to see.
That's another great film you've definitely got to add to a list if you have one.
I have a list. It's like, again, it's the whole idea of people being desperate, times call for desperate measures. How far are you willing to go?
Well, it's you have to kill this many people in this amount of time. Who do you decide goes?
Yeah, a bit like Circle.
How do you decide that?
Yeah, that's the kind of thing, like the whole desperate situation or deciding something very difficult like that. That's the kind of thing I think, with his style and his way of going about horror, I think would be very interesting to see. He would be able to do a completely different take on that kind of thing. I just think it would be really cool. That's definitely the kind of movie I'd want him to do.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions or anything?
I don't.
I don't think I do either. In which case,
we've covered everything.
We have.
Would you recommend this
film?
film?
That's a good one. I would, definitely.
How many Quentins would you give it out of 10?
I give it 8 Quentins out of 10. I feel like it's fantastic. A roundup. Fantastic cinematography. Very well directed. Very well put together. Definitely a project you can tell he cared about. The acting was fantastic, especially from the main actress that played Danny. absolutely bizarre, but fantastic. Just, I did prefer Hereditary a little bit more, but I did think it was great. So yeah, 8 Quentins out of 10.
I think I'd also give it 8 Quentins.
Ew.
Just because I feel like there were a few unanswered questions.
Yeah, and a few things that were a little bit obvious.
Yes.
For a movie that's going about subverting. Yeah.
Yeah. I would have liked to see that addressed more. Like the fact they only got a couple hours of nighttime.
Yeah.
It's never really something they addressed during it. Like, I feel like, yeah, there were definitely a few things they needed to address, but overall it was such a stunning film to watch and experience. Like, it was great, because I maybe saw the trailer once, didn't look into it.
Yeah.
Didn't look online about it. I just went into it not really knowing what to expect, and I'm really glad I did that, because it was so great just seeing firsthand what it was and experiencing all of that. But yeah, 8 Quentins out of 10.
Funnily enough, when you said about the hours of daytime, it reminded me of something that I thought when I was watching it, and I don't know if this is true or if it's just one of those stupid fake facts that goes around like Facebook, but there's this
I'm gonna kill this person outside my house.
Please do, just bash their head in. Throw them off a cliff. We're not psychos, we swear. Yeah. There was this thing going around, and it was probably like a fake fact kind of thing, but it was looking at like it said something about like, oh, there's a place in the world where there's only, you get to a certain time of year and there's only a very few hours of sunlight a day. I think it is a real thing, actually, because I'm pretty sure there's a movie called Insomnia.
We'll fact check it and come back to it next episode.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's a movie about it, a similar thing, where you just have long periods of darkness.
I'm pretty sure it's something like It Comes at Night or something like that.
It's not It Comes at Night, but it is something. I think it's called Insomnia.
It's like along those lines of title. Yeah. I know which one you're talking about. I can't think of it.
Yeah, but if
we'll
they
look it up and confirm it next time.
If they looked at that kind of thing and they kind of added in the aspect of maybe sleep deprivation because of the sunlight, and because they do mention in the film at one point, what day is it? And they say like, oh, I've lost track of the days. And I thought they were going to go more into that, and I would have been very interested to see where they had gone with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the main criticism I have, apart from minor nitpicks. But yeah, I think, is that everything?
I think we've come to the end.
Okay, groovy. I don't have an outro, so thank you for listening to the Fright Night podcast, because we couldn't use the nickname we wanted because somebody already took it. We will do something else on the next one, which we haven't planned out yet because this is a very quickly
this is the pilot episode, so please let us know.
Us rambling, testing out microphones that we don't properly know how to use, and not preparing at all. So you're probably sick of our voices by this point, so we'll be signing off. Thank you for listening to the podcast, and we hope you join in for the next episode. Goodbye.
Bye.
8 Quentins out of 10.